Hi, and welcome back to Side by Side with D. Today we're going to be making pie crust. So before we do anything, I need you to go ahead and get 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter in your freezer, preferably a stick because we are going to be grating it. You need 3/4 of a cup of shortening, vegetable shortening chilled. You can throw that in the freezer if we're trying to speed up the process, but if you have time you can go ahead and put it in the fridge. And then you're gonna need a 1/2 cup of ice water, so you can either just take some ice cubes or you can take a 1/2 cup of water, put it in a bowl that has a secure lid, and pop that in the freezer as well. So go ahead and get those things and meet me back here. I would say give it about 30 to 45 minutes in the freezer just so it can really firm up. I did that the minute I came back from the grocery store, so my ingredients should be ready at this point. So if yours aren't, pause, come back. If you're with me, let's go ahead and get our ingredients. Today we are going to be making pie crust. We're making this pie crust, and this is going to actually be a 2-part video because we have our Super Bowl next weekend. Now, let me actually sit back down. It is not the real Super Bowl, but it's my Super Bowl. It is the 3rd book of the Empyrean series from Rebecca Yarros. So the 3rd book to 4th Wing, Onyx Storm, is coming out next week. And my besties and I have rented a cabin. We're doing a 48-hour lock-in readathon. So we have a lot of great things planned. First of all, we have a hot tub. We've got games. I believe there's actually a sauna at the place. I don't know. We looked at so many places, actually don't remember. But we're very excited for this trip. It's like a little road trip that we're taking. So we're expecting some snow. So it should be fun. What we plan on doing is the second night, and they actually don't know this, and they won't find out because I'm not going to put this video up in time, so they won't actually know. But my best friend Veronica recently got engaged. My other friend Deanna is also engaged, and we never really got to celebrate her engagement. She got engaged a few years ago, and so I just thought, we're all here together, wouldn't it be great if we kind of took the moment, and since I planned on making a dinner and a dessert, that I kind of make it like into a small little engagement congratulations party. So congratulations party. So tomorrow I actually plan on shopping for just small things. I want to set the table. The good thing is the Airbnb is beautiful, so there's not much decorated that I have to do, but there is a theme that I'm looking for. It's kind of like all white with like black bows everywhere. And I want to print out some pictures from their engagement and kind of hang it on balloons. And we're preparing a dinner. Now my friend Deanna, because her house is kind of midpoint from where we're going to the Airbnb, and so I'm going to her house 2 days before the trip, and we're going to be prepping a dinner together. It's a dinner that we're going to be taking on that trip. What she doesn't know is that dinner is also the dinner for the engagement party. So she has a world famous meatloaf that she's going to be making. I'm going to be preparing twice baked potatoes, and I think we agreed on a vegetable. I think we said, if I'm not mistaken, like roasted carrots or asparagus, something like that. So you'll see us go ahead and prep the dinner and package it up. That way we can take it on the trip, and then you'll see us kind of put that dinner together and see what it looks like. But this pie crust is gonna go for the dessert. Both of my besties absolutely love creme brulee. And as you know, in the previous video, we made creme brulee, but this time we're just gonna change it up a bit. I'm somebody that I love a play on textures. So as much as I love creme brulee and I love that crackly top, I feel like I need something else. So I guess in a way, it's not really creme brulee. It's more like a custard pie with a brulee topping. But basically, when we're done, all in all, it's going to be a pie crust at the bottom, a lemon flavored custard, and then we are gonna make a lavender sugar brulee on the top. So it's like a lemon lavender custard brulee pie. I have to figure out the name by the time I put this up so we can put a title on it. But what I have here is I have a pie crust recipe from Tastes Better from Scratch.com. It had really, really good reviews. It had a 4.97 out of 1,500 votes, so that's pretty good. And the ingredients says that we need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon. She has kosher salt here. When I went to the store earlier, I ended up picking up fine sea salt. I do have a sprinkle of kosher salt. I don't know if it's enough for a teaspoon, but 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 6 tablespoons of cold unsalted butter, 3/4 cup of vegetable shortening, and 1/2 cup of ice water. This is my first time ever buying unsalted butter, but I wanted to follow the recipe to a T because this is a very important dinner for me. So I want to make sure that everything is perfect. So let's go ahead and get our ingredients. So this stick of butter is actually 8 tablespoons, but we'll just use 6 and then put the other 2 in the refrigerator. I have this vegetable shortening, and what I did was I just used 1/4 cup measuring cup, and I measured out 3, and then I put it in here. So I'm just gonna scoop it out, and that'll be that. If you're having a difficult time, if you also have something like this that's like a vegetable shortening and you don't really know how to measure it out, take a 1/4 scoop of a cup 3 times and you're good. Okay, so we need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Let me get a bowl. So we're not actually going to be rolling anything out today. We are literally just making a pie. And it says that this pie crust makes 2, which is great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze them both because the trip isn't until next week. And then I don't know if I'm going to take both with me. I might just take one because I can use that pie crust for something else that I want to try. So we have our bowl. We need our flour and our salt. I actually don't even know why I saved this. There's nothing in it. And the 1/2 cup of ice water, I'm just gonna keep in the freezer until we're actually ready for it. I think this moves pretty quickly, so it won't be too long, but I keep forgetting the flour. The reason why I wanted to make a separate video for this is because, one, I'm making it at home and then I'm traveling with it to my friend's apartment. So it kind of has to be made ahead of time because trying to make the crust, trying to make the custard, trying to prep that dinner all within like 24 hours is a lot. Pie crust is one of those things that you can keep in the freezer and you thaw it and it is just perfect as it is. But also, there are just so many things that you can do with a pie crust. I was literally flipping through Cartier Brown's The Way Home yesterday, and she has a chicken curry pot pie recipe. I have no words. So that's something that I definitely want to try, which is why I want to keep the other one, because we're doing a sweet and I want to also try it with a savory. If it works out, and I'm pretty sure it will, there's so many things that we can make. I've never made a pie crust. I never really even make anything that is like pie related. So this is kind of new for me, which is good. Now, if you happen to have one of those pastry cutters, that's great. I don't have one. I am a pastry cutter. So I'm going to be using a fork and maybe using my bread whisk to kind of cut it up a little bit. But if you have a pastry cutter, that's probably the best utensil you can use for this. Okay, perfect. Let's just move over. There we go. So So we're gonna get 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour in here. There's a lot of sick people in the house. We're gonna half. If you've also read the Fourth Ring series and you're current on it, and you have theories on Onyx Storm, you should place them in the comments. 1, 2, 3. So we're at 2 cups, and we need a half. But if you're gonna put your theories, because I'm actually dying to see them, just put like spoiler or like spoiler alert or so, like an asterisk or something, just in case someone who's reading the series or who plans on reading the series comes across your comment. It doesn't ruin anything for them. We hate a spoiler. So the instructions say to mix flour and salt. So we need a teaspoon. I usually like to measure salt over something and not the bowl I'm trying to put it in case it overflows, but this is a new salt, so I don't really have to push it so hard to come out. That's usually what happens, and it all kind of shoots out at one time. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna grate our butter. Unfortunately for me, I only have this style grater, so I'm just gonna plop it right in there just to make it easier on myself. And I'm just gonna stop at 2 tablespoons so we can get 6. We're not gonna be rolling anything out. We're just gonna take some plastic wrap after we divide it into 2. And we're gonna go ahead and plop these right in the freezer. If you're doing it like me and you're gonna stop at 2 tablespoons, just rotate it. That way it can be leveled. So when you get to 2 tablespoons, you know you have exactly 6 in the bowl. Let me see here. Okay. That's gonna get us to 6. You got a little bit left. Okay. That's cool too. So our next step is to also add in our shortening. Now it says if you don't have a grater, you could have cut the butter into really small pieces. And then we're gonna add this in. Again, I'm gonna grab a fork just because I don't have a pastry cutter. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and press down, and we want a coarse crumb. I'm pressing my index finger on the tip of the fork, but I'm not actually putting my hand in it because I don't want the heat from my hand to melt the butter or the shortening. I want the fork to be able to work it in so we get those crumbles. So at this point, I'm just looking for any huge chunks of that shortening that I did not get. See. Okay, so this looks coarse to me. And next, we're gonna add our ice water. The reason why I did it this way is because I have like a white standard refrigerator. I don't have like an ice maker. I am an ice maker, and I forgot to refill the ice makers that you put in the freezer. So this works just great. As you can see, we've got some ice on the side. So this is freezing cold. It says to add a spoonful at a time until the dough begins to come together into a ball, but be careful not to overmix, and you may not need all of the water. So just add a little bit. Gonna get my towel to keep it from spinning now that I'm working with one hand. I guess I'll wet it. If you place a towel down, it's better to wet it. That'll really lock it into place. Now, I'm a little perplexed because in the instructions it says, until it comes together into a ball, you may not need all of the water. This is nowhere near a ball. It's still pretty dry. My concern now is I was talking and I'm thinking maybe I put a half a cup in extra. I'll go back and watch and confirm. It does seem like it's coming together now that I'm using my hand. Maybe I didn't break down the butter and the shortening enough. Maybe it was still too chunky. Okay, so it says to mold into a ball. Over. All right, so it says divide into 2 pieces and press each to flatten into a disc. So because I know these are going straight into the freezer, I'm just gonna grab plastic wrap. If you have a food scale, now would be a good time to break that out. So that way you can weigh it and then divide it evenly. I don't have one. I know I come on here a lot with a lot of I don't haves. Let's see. This one feels maybe a little bit bigger. No? Okay, I think that might be okay. It says to flatten into a disc, so I'm just gonna try to get a decent shape on it. I think I might actually bring both of these because it does look a little small, and then if I didn't portion them out properly, I can just take from one just to make it bigger. Okay, that looks good enough. I'm also gonna put these in a plastic Ziploc bag, but that's pretty much it. We just pressed on it, and we're gonna get these in a Ziploc bag and then pop them in the freezer. Second one is pressed out, and they kind of do look like the same size, honestly. I know the plastic is all flimsy, but they really might be evened out, be portioned out evenly. I'm just gonna get, and I probably should have wrote this before I put these in here. So the instructions say if you were making these today and you weren't putting them in the freezer, that basically you're still going to cover them with plastic wrap and you're going to refrigerate them for 2 hours or freeze for 30 minutes. It does say that refrigeration is mandatory because you need the fats in the pie dough to be cold when it's rolled out and placed in the oven. So you still have to go ahead with this step, either 30 minutes in the freezer or 2 hours in the refrigerator, and then you can just click my next video and you'll see me kind of take these or thaw these out, and then we'll get into the rolling process of them. Almost forgot, we're not writing out the instructions or the recipe in our recipe books yet. I will put what we've done in the video in the description, but I'm gonna wait until we actually roll this out and bake it and we determine that this is actually a good recipe for us that works before I go ahead and write it in my recipe book. Now, if you roll yours out and it's perfect, again, it's going to be in the description. You can go ahead and place it in your recipe book along with $5 toward our knife goal. But for me, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to see if it works, and then we'll go ahead and we'll fill in our recipe books.
Okay, so I am apparently back in my own kitchen. You do not actually get to see me make the creme brulee pie dessert, and the reason is it just kind of didn't work out that way. So we did end up going on the girls trip. We had a great weekend. We were able to go ahead and finish the book. However, I think when I got to my friend's house, because we did do a pit stop before our final destination, I was just feeling a little bit frazzled outside of my own kitchen. I went to the store. When I got there, I got all the ingredients that I needed to make the creme brulee. But then I forgot to get like a pie dish. And so she ended up having like these Pyrex, what are they called? Like the snap with the snap lids. They're more like storage. And they just were not, it couldn't fit the pie crust. And then I had the pie crust in the freezer and I forgot to take it out. And I was just all over the place with this dessert. I just felt like I was not in my kitchen, in my element, and so it just didn't go as planned. So anyways, that whole thing got scrapped. I will show you what the dinner looked like at the end of this video, but I did come back home and we decided to make Cartier's curry chicken pot pie, and that is what I'm using the pie crust for in this video today. So what I did was I just thawed it overnight. You can see me here, I was kind of pressing into it because I was unsure if it was fully thawed or not, or how firm it still needed to be. But I was like, you know what, let me not question it too much and just roll with it. And I did have some concerns earlier in the video about whether or not I cut up the butter and the shortening well enough, but it turned out just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and roll this out. It was hard, I will say. It took, I don't know if it's not really showing in the video, but it took a lot of energy to get me to roll this out. I was really pushing into it. And because I was kind of intimidated to roll it out with the whole tortilla fiasco, I just really didn't care too much about the pie. I just wanted it to work. I had already made the pot pie filling. This was going to be our dinner tonight, so it just needed to work, and it did. So I'll just keep going back and forth a little bit, just rolling it out. I decided to do the voiceover because my boyfriend was listening to music and kind of just vibing out and talking with his friends, and I didn't want to get copyrighted. So it's still the same speed, and I didn't speed it up. It's still unedited. You can still follow along. You'll just have to hear my little lisp for a few minutes up close. But yeah, so I just rolled this out back and forth. At first, I couldn't decide if I wanted to do an entire pie or if I wanted to do like a ramekin, because remember I got those creme brulee ramekins and I see people all the time do like the little pot pies with a little pastry puff on the top or a biscuit on the top. So I ended up doing both just to see how they kind of felt or turned out. We ended up eating the pie. I have not eaten the ramekin small one yet because it was just last night, so we're gonna have it for lunch. But it ended up turning out really well. It was easy to roll out. I don't know if that was due to the shortening or like I guess like the amount of fat in there, but we're definitely gonna end up writing this pie crust recipe in our book because it was really good. Also, the pot pie was really good. Now, I have only eaten pot pie maybe like once in my life. I'm not really like a pot pie kind of person. Um, but I saw the recipe, it looked really good, and I had some leftover carrots and celery from when I made a pot roast, and so it just kind of seemed like the perfect meal to make. And I had the pie crust, so it all just kind of fit together. And it ended up being so good. So basically, the same way you do a normal pot pie, I did not have potatoes, so I ended up adding celery, carrots, corn, and I had a bag of Trader Joe's uh, sweet potato gnocchi. It's coated in a brown butter and sage. And then I went ahead and just added that in there, and it was really good. So as you can see here, I'm trying to figure out how many ramekins I can get out of it. I couldn't really make up my mind. But eventually we do end up going with just the um, one pie and one ramekin just to see how they both turn out. So here I just wanted to show what my filling looked like. It came out really good. Again, I used the gnocchi, I used carrots, potatoes, not potatoes, corn, and celery, curry powder. I cooked up some chicken thighs that I used some seasoning, some seasoned salt, and some other seasonings were in there, some thyme. So it turned out really well. Now at this point, I had the pie crust all rolled out to the thickness that I wanted, but I couldn't figure out how to actually get the pie crust on the pie pan. Um, and that was because I was scared that if I folded it, it would like fold into itself or it would rip. And so this was me just trying to figure out, okay, how am I actually going to get this on here without it ripping or anything like that. But I do eventually get it on there. And it was actually easier than I thought. Now I am going to at some point go in here and start cutting the edges. I think I could have left them a little bit longer. I wasn't sure because there was no pie crust at the bottom. I didn't have anything to press it into, right? To like either make those little crinkles or to press it with a fork. And so I didn't think that that would work, but I could have left a little bit of it hanging over just because when it bakes, it does shrink a little. And I could have just had it go all the way to the edge, kind of how it is now, like completely covering the pie pan. But I didn't do that. It only went in just a little bit, so it really wasn't like bad or anything like that. It's not like the pot pie overflowed on top of it, which I started to get nervous about once I saw it in the oven and it was kind of bubbling out of the corners. But that didn't happen. So it ended up turning out great. However, I just needed to maybe leave it a little bit longer. And I could have done something with it. Like you see, I tried to like pinch it, see if I could do something with the edges. And I didn't because it was too short. So I ended up just kind of pushing the edges in around the pie, trying to secure it. And I think that that did help. It did bubble, like I said, just a little bit out of like those little pockets, but it didn't overflow. And I think that had a lot to do with me kind of pressing it in. So that's what I did here. And it ended up being fine. But if you're doing this and you're following along, especially if you're doing something with like that's more liquidy or saucy, like if you were doing like a sweet potato pie or something like that, probably wouldn't have that issue. But if you're doing like a pot pie like me and you had a lot more liquid in yours, definitely leave it a little bit longer because it will shrink some once it starts to actually bake. Now, right here, I'm just whisking one egg to do an egg wash. And then we're going to go ahead and get this in the oven. I have the oven set at 400 degrees because I was following the curry chicken pot pie recipe, and that's what she had listed. She had it listed for 400 degrees for 30 minutes. I left mine in there for about 55 minutes. I do think my pie pan is a little bit larger than like a standard one. Um, so I did leave mine in a little bit longer, and I think it came out just great, but it was about 55 minutes for me at 400 degrees. So at this point, I was trying to make the little slits in the pie. That way, again, it doesn't bubble up or overflow. I don't know. I just see people do it all the time. I probably should have looked into why it's done, but I'm assuming it's to get some air in there so it doesn't just like explode. But because the filling under it was so liquidy, when I was cutting, it was kind of hard because I felt like it was gonna seep through the top. But I ended up just taking my time and pressing small little slits into it, and it ended up working out just fine. So right now I'm gonna pop it in the oven. At some point, I do move that. Um, what is that called? the the oven rack. I do move it up one or two because it was pretty low and I needed it a little bit higher because obviously the whole point was to cook the crust. So we do move it up. So if you're gonna be baking something, just remember to move your oven rack up one. And then I ended up putting a pan under it just in case it bubbled over or anything like that. I just didn't want the pot pie filling spilling all over the oven. It did seep out just a little bit. I don't think it would have been enough to make it smoke or to kind of do any real damage, but it does help in case, again, whatever it is that you're cooking, if it spills over, it's just there. So that was pretty much it. At this point, I just filled the ramekin. Sorry, I sneezed. I just filled the ramekin up, and it ended up being exactly the amount that I had left in the pot, which was great. And then I just used those little pie crust scraps to fill over the top. I used the egg wash on that as well, and I popped that in the oven along with the pie. And I will go ahead and show you what that looks like. So this is what our pies looked like when they came out of the oven. They came out perfectly.
So while we wait for the last 5 minutes, I can tell that this pie crust has turned out exactly how I want it to, maybe even better. So we're gonna go ahead and get it in our recipe book. This, I've been printing out recipes to make it kind of easier on myself when I'm doing something completely new. And I just stuffed the papers in this little folder that I got from Dollar Tree, just so I don't have to reprint them or lose them or anything like that. So they just stay in there. Now with this pie crust, let's see. We are gonna go with cakes, biscuits, and breads. Because the only other option is pasta, rice, and grains, and it's not a grain. So we've got some progress going on. I had to flip a couple of them. So we have pie. I'm gonna put servings for 2 because I technically made 2 with that video. I just lost one. I did have it pulled up in my phone. I used the recipe from, I think I mentioned it earlier, but tastebetterfromscratch.com, and it was just 2.5 cups of all-purpose. Sorry for the background conversation. My boyfriend is playing the game, so he likes to tease his friends a lot. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 6 tablespoons of cold salted butter. Oh, unsalted, excuse me. I think that's the whole reason why I bought unsalted. It was like 2 weeks ago, so you have to forgive me. Unsalted, 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. 3/4 cup of vegetable shortening. That vegetable shortening has come in so handy too. I literally made fried fish with it the other day. I made fried macaroni and cheese bites. 1/2 cup of ice water. Because outside of avocado oil and olive oil, I never keep like other oils in my house. So it's nice to have because it's like a container and it's kind of like, I'm not gonna, fry fish in olive oil. So the ingredients were pretty easy too. So great, great butter, and set aside. Mix dry ingredients in bowl. Add cold water and both fats. Use pastry cutter or a fork. I used a fork and it worked out fine. I think I used a fork. I should have looked back on this footage. I think it was a fork. Use pastry cutter or a fork. I think it was till it got to like a crumble. Yes, a coarse crumble. Until dough resembles coarse crumble. Oh, whoops. I have to make a correction. But first, I mean, look at this. So first off, I used Cartier's. Well, I kind of deviated from the recipe, which is why I didn't film it. I looked at Cartier's curry chicken pot pie, and that's where I got the inspiration from. So I did add some Madras curry powder, but I did all the other stuff the same. It's basically a roux with chicken stock, celery. I put corn and carrots in there as well. I used some chicken thighs that I cooked up and then cooked down in the pot pie mixture. We threw some thyme in there. We have some seasoning salt. I meant to put a little bit of chicken rub and I forgot, but it's okay. I put a little bit of allspice, garlic, onion powder, actual garlic, actual onion, and salt and pepper. And to make it the pot pie, for my choice of milk, I used heavy cream because that's what I had. I'm trying to think. There was something else. Oh, I don't have any potatoes, but I wanted something in it. And I thought about making these. I get from Trader Joe's and it's really good. It's their sweet potato gnocchi and like a brown butter sage sauce. And I thought about making it on the side. But then I was like, let's Google gnocchi pot pies. And people actually put them in their pot pies. So I figured because this was like a curry powder, the brown butter sage will be good in here. We'll see how that works out. I didn't add the whole bag. I added 2/3 of the bag. But I just wanted something to kind of oomph it up. So we'll see how that works. But as far as like the crust, I mean, look at it. Even the smaller one, can you see? There we go. The smaller one even came out cute. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the big one or the small one. But because this was a pie crust video, I wanted it really to have that pie shape. So obviously it spilled through the edges. I didn't crink it like I was supposed to. I don't know, it's kind of flying by the seat of my pants, whatever. So I'm just gonna let this cool completely so the liquids can solidify a bit. And then we'll go ahead and cut into it. But what I wanted to say was, I said to grate butter and set aside, which is right. Mix dry ingredients in the bowl. However, I said add cold water in both fats. You're gonna add both fats first. So you're gonna cross out that cold water part. You're gonna add both fats and then use a pastry cutter until the dough resembles a coarse crumble. And then at that point, at a spoonful at a time, you're going to add in the ice water until it becomes a dough. So add a spoonful at a time. ice water until dough comes together into a ball. So then we'll divide into 2 squares. I feel like when I shaped it into the square, it helped me roll it out. Even though I didn't do a great job, I feel like it was way better than what I did with the tortillas. So, and flatten. And then over here, I'll just put wrap individually and freeze. Or wrap individually and freeze. For same day usage, chill for 2 hours in the fridge. And then to use the freezer product, just thaw in the fridge overnight. So for frozen, thaw in fridge overnight. This was super easy. I mean, it looks great. I'm super excited. I'm not someone who eats pot pie often. I think I may have had it like once in the past. I don't think I've ever made it. And I didn't film it even though it's something I've never made because it just seemed pretty simple. Just some seasonings, dice up some vegetables, and just like it's more of like a comfort, very like a down-to-earth type of meal that it didn't really seem too complex to make, so it didn't make any sense for me to film it. However, I do want to make another video in the future actually using this pie crust for a dessert. So we're gonna let this cool completely and then we'll cut into it and then give it a taste test.
So this was me cutting into it. I had let it cool for about an hour, maybe like an hour and 20 minutes. It was still warm, but it was cool enough that I can tell that the sauce kind of calmed down around it. It kind of minimized around those edges. So I just went ahead and I went in there with a spoon. I was worried about a few things. I was worried about one, that the pot pie would hold, but also that the crust would be fully cooked. And I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but everything turned out amazing. The pot pie itself was amazing. I know this is not a pot pie video, it's about the crust. But I gotta tell y'all, the pot pie was good. So if you're looking to switch up your pot pies, the curry chicken was amazing. But the crust was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was flaky, it held, it didn't feel dry at all. I mean, it was just the perfect, I feel like we kind of got it right on the first one. So I was super excited about it. It tastes delicious, and I'm literally about to go heat some up for myself right now. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again.